Okay, well, thank you very much. So I think it's interesting. So I think you'll see a lot of similarities between the way that Amy and I think, but we do not collude. So it just is triangulation. So University of Michigan Press is even smaller than MIT Press. MIT Press is a giant from our perspective. We are published about 110 books a year. We're almost exclusively a books publisher, and there's a little asterisk which I'll come back to there. We are part of Michigan Publishing, as like MIT Press, we're one of the 30% of university presses who report to libraries and have a similar ambition around the integration of publishing into the library. University of Michigan Press is actually one of three entities within Michigan Publishing, the division of publishing of the library. The other two are Michigan Publishing Services, which is an author services unit of the sort Amy described, and then Deep Blue, option the institutional repository right the way through to a very high intervention model, the University Press. We are pretty engaged in open access. About 15% of our books last year were open access. And through the publishing services entity, we host and service about 40 small open access journals, as well as a number of open access books. So this is the problem that we have, and Elaine mentioned this in terms of library budgets, and that has a deep impact, clearly. We are also experiencing an impact from the changing behavior of students around textbooks, and what you see here is a 10-year picture of revenue, and this is actually just print revenue, but it tells the story, I think. The top line is the total. The second line down is monographs, and we're heavily a monograph publisher, and that's where we've been very badly hit. That third line in blue is textbooks. So we have an English language teaching division, a true textbook division, and the bottom line is the regional trade list, and that's something that many university presses have. We have a small one of those because there are two other university presses in Michigan, and there's only so much Michigan to go around. So, walking with giants, of course, if you have a small son and a small daughter, you think of this kind of giant. The way we're sort of thinking of positioning ourselves, and very much this is a moment of sort of having to position ourselves competitively, is with this idea. My colleague Mary Francis, who's the editorial director, brought up this concept, which I like, a small mammal press. Thinking as a small mammal press in this ecology, we are working together, and this is across Michigan Publishing, along a series of commitments. And these are some commitments that we made earlier, came up with earlier this year. And what these are commitments to our authors particularly. And I wanted to sort of go through these commitments a little bit. The reality of the financial situation we're facing is that we have to clearly think about our sustainability. So we have to come up with new revenue sources, such as the publishing services entity. But we also need to much more clearly articulate the fact that we are born as a non-profit entity. We are a charitable entity. We're not supposed to be competing with commercial publishers. We're supposed to be filling the gaps that it's commercially not really feasible to engage with. And we're also supposed to be giving back to the community. We're supposed to be creating tools and models and things that we make openly available that may help others. So really re-engaging with that idea of mission-driven publishing is very important. But here are sort of three ways in which we're thinking about positioning ourselves. The first one is definitely the idea of partnership, and this is this kind of the craft model of publishing that university presses have traditionally spent a lot of time on, a very hand-holding sort of approach to developing authors' work. It's always very striking to me that, the average university press editor has a target of maybe about 20 to 25 books a year compared to, a Palgrave or whoever, which is about, an editor will have about 75 books a year. So it really is a contrast in the style, the expectations of those editors in terms of this partnership model. The second thing which is related is the idea of providing publishing solutions and across the entire life cycle. This is the motivating idea behind Michigan Publishing, that we recognize that not all authors need the book, right? Of course, that leaves a whole lot of people on our campus completely off to one side because they're not in book disciplines. But even humanities, social science scholars, the book is not all they care about. They create a number of other outputs during their professional lives. And finally, communicating impact is very, very important. As the royalty checks reduce, we need to be able to tell a story of impact and reach in a way that's not purely financial. So these are all themes that I'm just going to walk through briefly now. So here are our commitments. The last one is interesting as well. I mean, our great advantage, our huge competitive advantage, is that we're embedded in the University of Michigan. So we need to take advantage of the fact that we are part of a very large research institution and have preferential access to the university's resources, including its leading scholars and students. So partners invested in your success. One of the projects we've been working with Emory University on recently has been this document, this suite of documents, a model publishing contract for digital scholarship. What we realized is that we were increasingly seeing projects coming our way which were open access and probably had some digital affordances in them. So we're not entirely like a regular book or an e-book print facsimile. And what we were finding was when we came to contract, the contract stage, our contracts were not keeping up with what was needed. Our contracts are sort of based on some 1970s New York trade contract, which has been passed down from generation to generation, being tweaked in the process. And that's really not fit for purpose. So we have worked consultatively with a number of publishers, authors, libraries, and other groups to come up with this model contract for digital scholarship, which will be published to this site later in June, we're in now, so in about mid-June. And that will be a document which is openly licensed and may have some clauses in it that you may want to think about using around preservation, accessibility, things like that. It's really not, we don't expect that people will pick this up wholesale. It's not intended as a replacement for existing contracts. It's really intended as something that might have something useful in it that you might want to use, especially if you are a book publisher. So this is part of this idea of partnership for us because we feel that we could have a competitive edge if we can go to authors and say, look, we're on your side. This is a 3-page contract. It's not a 12-page book contract. And it's oriented towards you being the winner here. So it's a competitive positioning that's very aligned with our partnership model. The second thing is around this idea of providing publishing solutions, and I think I'm echoing Amy here in this recognition that our authors are coming to us with a whole lot of needs, and we need to be responsive to them. Our authors tend to be in the visual and performing arts. That's where the press is traditionally strong. So a particular need that we've been hearing recently is a desire to integrate multimedia resources with narrative. So, you produce your book, but during your research, you have been actually gathering a whole lot of digital images and audio files and video files. You've got this big archive. You actually want to present work that is not just textual in nature and is not just necessarily bounded by the covers of a book. And so we've been working on a platform that we are calling Fulcrum, rather pretentiously. This is a platform that initially is about providing companion websites in a scalable way for the books that are published. But in its next phase, which we're currently engaged in, it will provide a forum for presenting all our electronic materials, all our ebooks. And so in the same way as MIT Press is, we are creating our own University of Michigan Press ebook collection, which we'll launch in 2019 on the Fulcrum platform. So again, another parallel, and definitely following the example of Duke University Press, which has been a real leader in this space. So that's really in the publishing solutions, especially around technology space. And this is built on the same infrastructure as a library data repository. So I think in terms of innovation, we recognize this is not terribly innovative technologically. In innovation terms, it's a fact that it's built on research library infrastructure and repurposes that for publishing functions that's innovative. And finally, this issue of communicating impact. Outmetrics really is quite useful for us, especially in the open access space. And it's a way of really telling the story of the press to the parent institution. Campaign Finance and Political Partisanship is a book that the university pays attention to. It's really aligned with the sorts of things that the university is interested in. This is one of our open access journals that we host, the Journal of Muslim Mental Health. And just to say, that is a mission-related activity in itself, because that is a journal that you will recognize would never have a subscription base that could actually make it sustainable, and also is likely to have authors who cannot afford APCs. So our journals program is all about supporting those small, niche, but important journals that would otherwise fall through the cracks. But again, you know, thinking about diversity, thinking about issues of race and ethnicity and the relationship between the government and the individual, this is a journal with a story that we would like to tell, which is very aligned with the story that University of Michigan would like to tell. So you'll see these Outmetric buttons on there, and being able to tell the story of impact and reach of our publications in a way that is very aligned with the goals of the university is very much what we're trying to do at the moment. So who knows, right? It could end well. It could end very, very badly. But thank you for your attention.